Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is the fifth part in a five-part series, mainly designed for either new users and or new members in BNI, and people that are new to BNI Connect, obviously. As part of this five-part series, the first thing we went into was how to fill out your profile. Then we talked about how to use the online slips to pass referrals and enter your one-to-ones and things like that. The third part of that was using the social media functions of BNI Connect, so how to really tap into the global database system that we have here. The fourth step last week, we talked about the member tools and reports, so we went a little bit deeper into BNI Connect and looked at some of the information that we could harness back out of the system. Today, what we're going to talk about is the visitor process, and really, how can the visitor process help you in your chapter to invite more visitors and have more of those visitors that you have invited actually show up to the meeting as well. So those are the things that we are going to talk about today. Before I get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. First of which is that this is a live webinar. So that means that you can ask questions as we're going through the webinar today. So if anything is confusing or just about as clear as mud, please do feel free to type your question in. I'll see that pop up on the screen. It'll flag me down, and I'll be able to answer that question as we're going through the material today. Or of course, if it's something completely unrelated, I will save that for the end. We're scheduled for about a half hour worth of content. I try to keep these to 30 minutes or so for the presentation portion of it. But that being said, I am happy to stay on these calls personally until every single question has been answered. So that means that if you do need to leave at the bottom of the hour, you should still get all of the content in. However, if you do have questions, whether it's about the visitor process or about anything in BNI Connect, feel free to hang out and ask those questions. We are also recording this webinar. All of the webinars are recorded. You'll be able to find them in a couple of different places. First place is on the support site. If you just go to support.bniconnect.com or hit the question mark in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect, you'll see all the webinars listed there. You can also find all the recordings on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. It has the recorded webinars as well as a bunch of other stuff as well. It has educational moment videos, for example, short 3 to 5 minute videos on all sorts of things like how to pass a referral or how to send an invitation, all one-step processes. All right, so that being said, let's get started with today's topic, which is the visitor process in BNI Connect. Now, the visitor process is what I have up on the screen now. This is a quick overview. Now, if you'd like, by the way, a copy of this is part of a 53-page manual that I have on the visitor process in BNI Connect. That really goes into the step-by-step and all the screenshots and everything for this process. So if you'd like a copy of this, all you need to do is send an email to support@bniconnect.com. Again, that is support@bniconnect.com. And if you just put in that email, I would like a copy of the visitor manual. One of us from the support team will be happy to reply to you and send you that manual. But there's 3 steps to the visitor process in BNI Connect. The first step in the process happens before the visitor shows up to the meeting. So the first step is inviting a visitor, and BNI Connect has a way to do that, has a way to send out a custom BNI invitation inviting them on your behalf to come to the meeting. The second part of this process is pre-registering your visitors, and this also happens before the meeting. And this right here, this is the key to the whole process, is this pre-registration process. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Now, the final part of this process is the follow-up. And the follow-up is really going in and figuring out who actually showed up to the meeting and making sure that a follow-up is sent. And then much later down the road, because we're building this visitor database for our chapter. Those visitors can either be turned into members eventually when they submit an application, or you can follow up with those visitors a second, a third, a fourth time. Invite them back for visitors days or stack days or to your after hours events and things like that. So let's start taking a look at this process. Let's start at the top here. And again, this is the inviting visitors portion of it. Now in BNI Connect, we do have a way to invite visitors for an upcoming chapter meeting. So let me switch over to BNI Connect here. And this is obviously the home screen. So when you first log into BNI Connect, this is what you should see on the screen. Now, in order to get into some of these other functions, we are going to have to dive past the home screen here. All of the other functionality in BNI Connect is going to be kind of behind these various menus along the top here. We have network operations, reports, tools, and admin. Now, depending on your level of access to the system, you may or may not see all of these functions. But at the very least, as a member in BNI, you should see the first three: network, operations, and reports. Now, the way I've always remembered where to go is network is always the social media components of BNI Connect. So if we look at network, this is where we can go and get into discussions with the groups, or we can work with our connections, which is really our BNI address book, so to speak. Work with our testimonials and our picture gallery. Now, operations and reports are really the other two places that you'll be going to on a regular basis. If you want to do stuff, if you want to send out an invitation, if you want to enter visitors, you want to enter a POMS report, any kind of data entry or really day-to-day management of your chapter, where you're going to go to is operations. Reports, on the other hand, are always read-only. Input operations, reports read only. So if we want to send out a visitor invitation, the place that we're going to go to is operations. So I'm going to go to operations menu. So once we get to operations, we'll see a number of the things down the side, such as managing visitors and meeting management, managing memberships and goals and things like that. But if we want to send an email invitation, the place we're going to go to is Create Email. And under Create Email, we have three different options. We have the Email My Chapter, we have Email Visitor Invitation, and we have Email Chapter Visitors. What we're going to do today is we're going to email a visitor invitation. And the way this works is I just simply click on it, and it's going to allow me to fill out a couple of fields. Now, where this is really helpful is that what it's going to do is it's going to take the information that we input and put it into a nice branded email message that gets sent out to the person that you're inviting to the chapter. So it really does help take a lot of the guesswork out of it. For example, what do I say to this person? Do I have to make up this big long email? What is the address of the place that we meet? I mean, I know how to get there, but I don't necessarily know the street address off the top of my head. So it saves you all the time of having to look that up. The other thing it does is, again, because it's inviting the visitor, it is explaining what BNI is without getting into too much detail. A lot of times as members, we struggle to invite people because we either don't know what to say, so we don't say enough about BNI, or we're so excited about BNI that we end up saying too much and we can scare people off that way. So this works. So all we're going to do is we're going to put in somebody's name. So let's say that we're going to be inviting Brian Smith from Smithco, and the email address. Now, this is a one-time email that gets sent, so there's no tracking or reports or anything like that. Feel free to just put your own email in, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. I just put my own email address in so that that email comes directly to me on my computer, and I'll see what it looks like. The personal message, this is going to be the first paragraph of the email. So you want this to sound like it's coming from you, your own personal message. Now, because I like to use this really as a kind of almost like a second invitation. So I will usually meet somebody at, let's say, a networking event. Hey, you want to come to my chapter meeting? Sure, I'd love to come. How about I send you an invitation, and then I send them this invitation. So I'll usually say something like, it was great meeting you at the Chamber networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral team. Right? Now I just have to hit send. It's going to take that, it's going to put it in a nice little package, put a bow on top, and email that out to Mr. Smith, but actually to my email address. Now I should have that in just a second, and here it is. So here's the email. It has come through. You can see that it comes from me, and it says your BNI invitation. My chapter wants to meet you. It has a nice BNI graphic in here. It then addresses it to Brian, and it puts my first sentence in there. It was great meeting you at the Chamber networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral team. It then lets them know that they're cordially invited to the meeting of the BNI Burr chapter. Notice that I'm using my test chapter up in Antarctica right now. It puts in their address and the day and the time that the meeting is. It then briefly explains what BNI is all about, lets them know that they're looking for somebody in their profession and to please RSVP with you. If they hit reply to this, it will go directly back to your email address. So you will receive the reply to that particular inquiry. If we have any director consultants that are on the line with us today, or even executive directors or area directors, one thing to note is that you can use this for any of the chapters you support as well. It will send the invitation out. This case it's the Burr chapter because that's what I have selected in the dropdown. But if I was also supporting, let's say, the Frozen Assets group, I could switch to the Frozen Assets group and send out the email on behalf of Frozen Assets. And it would invite them to that chapter and fill out all the chapter meeting information accordingly. All right, so that is the invitation process. That's inviting somebody to the meeting. Now, the next part of this process, after you invite somebody and they come back and say, yes, I would like to come to your chapter meeting. The next part of this is registering for them for the meeting. And as I said before, this one right here is probably the biggest, most important step in the whole process. And that is because it turns it and it changes it from a casual invitation to a very professional invitation. So a lot of times when we invite somebody to come to a BNI meeting, again, we'll meet them out at a networking event or something, and a lot of times it'll even be the night before our chapter meeting. Oh, so you like this? Well, you really need to come to my chapter meeting. Oh, what time is it? Oh, it's tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Oh, no big deal. I'll be there. And then all of a sudden, tomorrow morning comes, or the morning of your meeting comes around, and the alarm goes off at dark 30, and they're thinking to themselves, I just did a networking event. I don't want to go to another networking event. You know what? There's going to be hundreds of people there. They probably won't even miss me. And that's something that we know we're going to miss them, but they've usually not been to a BNI meeting before, so they don't know the format, they don't know the layout, they don't know that it's a more personalized experience. Now, once you get them involved in the registration process, though, so you register them to come to the meeting, or they can even register themselves, this turns it into a more of an official visit. So once they get an email saying, once they register, they'll immediately get an email saying, hey, thank you so much for registering to visit this meeting. What this has now done is there is an expectation that they should be showing up to the meeting. Again, an expectation that they should be showing up to the meeting. It's not just a casual, hey, why don't you come tomorrow morning? It's a, you should be at this meeting tomorrow, and you've now registered for it. It also sends them a reminder. So let's say they register for a meeting a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, whatever it might be. You can also Well, it will also send them a 2-day reminder. So 2 days before the meeting, by the way, you're registered to visit this chapter meeting. Please show up. It will also notify the entire leadership team, so the president, the vice president, the secretary treasurer, all of the visitor hosts, and the director consultant for the group, that there is a visitor that will be in attendance at that meeting. So let's see how this works. Now, there's 2 ways that you can pre-register a visitor. The first way is that a visitor can register themselves for an upcoming meeting. And the second way is that you as a member can pre-register your visitors. So let's have a look. Now, the visitor registration piece, from a member perspective, you can register your visitors right here in BNI Connect, and that's done through the Manage Visitors process. So again, we're doing input, so we're in the operations menu right now. And depending on your level of access, you may see up to 4 options here, but the one that we're looking for is the one that's labeled Register a Prospective Visitor before a meeting. So this is really, again, this is the pre-registration of visitors, whereas recording a visitor is after they've attended. So if they never pre-registered, then you use that. But this is going to be before a meeting. Now, all this is a very simple form. So we're just going to choose their profession. Let's say that this person is in appliance repair. We can choose the date of their visit. Now, you know you're in the right place here because it won't let you choose a past date. You can only choose future dates. So I'm going to say that this person isn't going to make it this week, but they will be here for the November 4th meeting. And this was Brian Smith. Whoops, Smith. The company name was Smith Co. I can put the address in. Put in their phone number and their email address. And once again, I'm going to put in my own email address just so that you guys can see the notification that comes through. Email address is mandatory, again, because it does start this process of notifying that visitor that they're registered for a meeting. So in just a second, I should get an email. So here is the email that I just received saying, "Hi, Brian, you are confirmed to visit the BNI Burr chapter meeting on November 4th at 5:30 in the afternoon. Please plan to be at the meeting for 90 minutes and to bring plenty of business cards." So this is now really set up that expectation for them to show up to the meeting. Now, in addition to that, I'll also get the email reminder 2 days before the meeting. But the chapter, the leadership team and the visitor hosts also get an email saying that there is a Brian Smith confirmed to visit your chapter. Please be prepared to welcome Brian. It also lets us know what company he's with, what profession he's in, his phone number, and his email address. So the great thing we can do now is we can follow up with Brian before the meeting has even taken place. "Hey, Brian, you're in appliances." That is awesome. We have a whole team that works with real estate transactions. Can't wait to introduce you. Now, I did mention that people also have the opportunity to register themselves for a chapter meeting. Now, you can do this through the public websites. Now, if you'd like to get to your regional website, click on the regional website button in the upper right-hand corner. That'll open up a new window and it will bring you to your public regional website. So this is a website that anybody in the world can access. And let's say that I'm Brian Smith out there and I would like to register myself for a meeting. First thing I'll do is find out which chapter would I like to visit. I can take a look at all the chapters here, when and where they meet. And I think I'm going to go to the Wakefield group. And from here, I can check out which members are in the group. I can even click through and click on any of their profiles. I can go view the chapter website, the gallery, or I can click the button that says visit this chapter. Now, what we see here is, for all intents and purposes, it is the exact same form that you would fill out as a member on the inside of BNI Connect. It's just that this one is on the public internet, which means that it is accessible to really anybody in the world. All the same fields. They choose a visit date, what date they're going to be visiting, their name, their phone, their email. They select their industry and classification, or choose that they don't know what it is. They would have to, at that point, fill in their the person that is inviting them to the meeting, and a little CAPTCHA code to make sure that they're not a robot filling out these forms. But other than that, the same exact process happens. So the leadership team will still get their notification. Brian Smith or whoever is registering themselves for the meeting will also get their notification and their reminder. One of the great things that happens because of this is that as a chapter and even as a director consultant, you can stay on top of this process, especially for visitors days. You can see who's registered for the visitors days. And there's a great little report that comes along with this. If I go to reports now, I go to the chapter level reports. Everybody should have access to this report. It is all the way down at the bottom of the list, but there's a report here, the visitor registration report. This will default for 1 week, but I can expand this out, and let's say go through the end of November. Let's say we're having a Visitors Day towards the end of November. I can go into this report and see, well, how many people do we have registered for the next month. And right now we only have the one. We have Brian Smith, who is registered to attend the meeting. We just registered a few minutes ago. This is a great form also because it allows you to export it to Excel. I've used this information, especially around a Visitors Day. I'll send it out in an email to my chapter to let them know, hey, this is how many people we have coming. And it also shows who invited them. So it lets people know who is participating in the invite process for the chapter as well. All right. So that is the initial registration process and the invitation. Now, the final step of this is really when it comes to registering their visitors after the meeting. This part of the process is usually reserved for people that are on the leadership team. So it's going to be the usually the visitor hosts, or it might be the secretary treasurer of the chapter that's going to be entering the data after the meeting. Sometimes it's even the vice president. But that being said, let me show you how this works now. So once your meeting has happened, now comes the part where you're going to do the visitor follow-up process. So the first two things here happen before the meeting, and the last box here happens after the meeting. So at this point, visitors have attended, and we need to do things like update the PALMS report and send follow-up emails and things like that. And as I said, build our visitor database. Now, going back to the operations menu, our first option here again is manage visitors. Now, the first part of this is, hopefully we had people that registered to visit the meeting, and hopefully some, if not all of them, showed up. Now, visitor hosts have a pretty tough job generally because they have to do the data entry and read the visitor sign-in sheet and all the chicken scratch that's on there to figure out who came, and undoubtedly a lot of the information gets entered wrong. The nice thing about the pre-registration process is because people that are more familiar with the information about the person, hopefully the visitor themselves, they're entering it correctly. So the first step in this is really to go to our registered visitors and mark attendance function. And we can do a search if we'd like to. And we can see that in the month of October here, we actually had 2 people that were registered. So John Smith, let's say that I am the visitor host and I'm entering the visitors from last week's meeting. I can see John Smith here, was registered to visit on 10/21. If he showed up, what I'm going to do is I can go in and edit this. And now, rather than having to enter all of this information from scratch, all I need to do is put this checkbox that says this visitor attended. I'll then have the option to choose whether or not they should be added to the POMS. In other words, should the person that invited them get credit in the POMS report for inviting that visitor? And there's some reasons why you may not want to do that, especially if you're using the chapter traffic lights program. This does affect the conversion rate. The conversion ratio is simply the number of new members in your chapter divided by the number of visitors over that time period. So if you're putting, let's say, the same person is registered 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row, and they come for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, giving that person credit every single time is going to dilute or artificially lower the conversion ratio. So visitors should only be given POMS credit the first time that they come to the meeting. This also should just be eligible visitors. So members of another chapter, for example, we wouldn't want to give POMS credit to. You can verify the person from the list. So you can see here that it tells you who did the data entry, which you do still need to choose the person from the drop-down list in order to verify that. You can then just review the information. And then finally, at the bottom, you get to choose whether or not you want to send the follow-up email. When you're ready, click Submit. Now, in this case, I chose to send the follow-up email, so I should get an email in just a second letting me know that thank you so much for visiting the chapter. The other thing you'll notice is that this person has disappeared from the registered visitor list. They are now in our visitor database that has all of the people that have been to our chapter meetings. Now, if somebody did not pre-register at this point and they're not showing up in the list, my recommendation here is just to click Add Visitor. And again, it's the same form once again, has all the visitor information in it, phone numbers, contact information, email address, add the person to the POMS, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, again, pretty much the same exact form. And it did take an extra second, but here is the thank you email. Thank you so much for visiting. And once we start collecting visitor information, we do have additional options that are open to us. For example, back under reports, we also are now starting to keep a visitor database, meaning that we can go back to this list of visitors anytime we want to. So here I can go to the chapter visitor report. And let's say that we're having another visitors day in our chapter, and we want to re-invite anybody that came to our chapter throughout the year, so that they might want to come back and give us a second look. So I can take this list of chapter visitors and I can either export this, and when I export this, by the way, it does have additional information. So it does have the, for example, the address, if we're going to be adding this to send out cards or something like that. Also, great use of this is to invite people to, let's say, a business after hours or come meet the chapter type of situation. So, all right, we are at the bottom of the hour. So what I'd like to do is to open this up for questions. So just a reminder, this big 53-page manual that I was showing you guys before, I am happy to send this out to anybody that would like it. This is basically a step-by-step guide that shows you screenshots and basically how to do everything that we talked about today and a little bit more. So feel free to email support@bniconnect.com, support@bniconnect.com, and we'll be happy to send you a copy of that. I also let you know that this is being recorded, so it will be made available. A couple of different ways to get to it. The first of which is to go to the support site. Now you get to the support site right here up in the upper right-hand corner by clicking on this question mark. That will bring you to the support site. By the way, a good referral from me is to please let people know about these webinars. If you found out something good today or something useful, please let other members know about them. The November series has been posted, so you can see the first 5 webinars, mostly for new members or anybody just logging into BNI Connect. Please steer them in that direction. I would love to see people registered. The recordings, you should see right here, it says recorded webinar series. You can click on any of the recordings. This will have all of the recordings for the month, and today's will be uploaded just as soon as I can, probably in the next 48 hours or so. You can also check out youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, and this has a ton of information on it. So again, our October webinar series, educational moments, tons and tons of videos, hundreds of videos up there available for you. All right, do we have any questions? Any questions at all? I would be happy to answer those questions. All right, doesn't appear that we have any questions today. Guess it was all crystal clear. Deep T says hi to everybody, and thank you again. Deep T has been on the last couple of webinars with us, so if not the whole series this month, possibly. So Deep T, thank you so much for being here once again, and of course Steve Elliott, another frequent flyer of the BNI Connect webinars, so thank you for being here as well. All right, if there's no questions, thank you guys so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Happy connecting.